There is a giant problem in this country that I have just been made aware of, and it has the potential to put the entire American democracy in jeopardy. According to the Democrats, there's a guy who is single-handedly trying to ruin this country. His name is Gerrymander, and somehow he's stealing votes and trying to usher in an unending dynasty of Republican control for the next 1,000 years. I did some digging and found out that Jerry used to be a good guy and work for the Democrats, but then Donald Trump said his name in the mirror 3 times, and like the Candyman, he now appears and works for the Republicans, which makes him bad. I'd be all for deporting Gerrymander, but the Democrats didn't seem to like that solution either, so I'm kind of at a loss as to what to do here. Anyway, I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello everyone. Hope you're doing fantastic out there on this Friday. I have 2 topics that we are going to be talking about this week. We're going to talk a lot about gerrymandering, and then I briefly want to touch on Zoran Mandani in New York. They just had their second round of debates. It did not go well, and we're going to make fun of him. It's going to be great. But before we get into that, let's jump into topic 1 right off the bat, gerrymandering explained. So it is possible. Oh, actually, before we get into any of that, Winnie hasn't said hello in a little bit. Winnie, can you say hello? No? You're shy? She said, no, I don't want to talk to you. She doesn't want to talk, guys. I don't know what her deal is. You know how she is. She's always camera shy. So let's get into. It's possible that we talked about this topic before, but I want to talk about gerrymandering. I want to discuss a little bit of the history of it. I want to discuss good, bad, who uses it, who doesn't, blah, blah, blah. We're going to get into all of it. And I think it's important that we understand what it is that we're talking about, because many people don't. They don't understand. A lot of people, surprising amount of people I talk to actually have never even heard of gerrymandering. Most of America, I feel like, is really not plugged into politics on a daily basis. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that you do not let the 24-hour news cycle of politics run your life. It really is not that important, guys. I hate to break it to you. I know that this is a political show, so I'm really just telling on myself. Politics should not run your day-to-day life. So I completely understand many people don't know this term, don't really understand it. Gerrymandering, in the simplest way I could define it, is when you have to apportion votes apportion sections of Congress. Gerrymandering is the practice of doing it so that it's favorable to either the Democrats or Republicans. So each state gets split into districts. And if the Democrats were to draw the districts, then they would draw it so that more Democrats get elected than Republicans. And Republicans would do the same. Basically, gerrymandering is the practice of trying to get your party elected by manipulating those districts. You ever seen a congressional district that looks like a sickle connecting the top and the bottom of the state, and it's drawn, and you go, how the hell, what is the point of this? How is that a district? That is politicians trying to game the system for their team. That's what it is. That's what gerrymandering is. Now, oh my gosh, you probably can't hear this in the microphone, but this cat now is going ballistic. I let her down. I gave her an opportunity to speak into the mic. She was shy, and now she's just going to go yell at me from the corner of the room. Okay, that's fine, Winnie. You do your thing. Gerrymandering has been around since the beginning of the country. So if you think back to when we declared independence from England, basically immediately after that, gerrymandering began. The guy, and we know this for a fact, because where does the name gerrymandering come from? Well, it comes from a man named Elbridge Gerry. And Elbridge Gerry was actually the 5th vice president of the United States to James Madison. So you think about that. These guys, both of them signed the Declaration of Independence. And basically, from the beginning of time, Elbridge Gerry was responsible for drawing a congressional district that was so ridiculous that the entire practice of gaming the system became named after him. So I want to show you a couple pictures here. Actually, let me do something real quick. Sorry. Pardon me for one moment while I... Yeah, okay. I wanted to fact check something. I remember he signed the Articles of Confederation. I couldn't remember if he signed the Declaration of Independence. I want to double check that. So he did. So Elbridge Gerry actually signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation. So he did sign both. But anyway, I want to show you a picture of the man. So this is the man. This is him right here. This is a picture of Elbridge Gerry. You can see the years that he lived, 1744 through 1814. So this man was dead in 1814. So you think about that from 1776, round it up, just make it easy. 1780 to 1810. There's a 30-year period here. This man was already gerrymandering in the first 30 years of the country. Okay, so you think about that, But that's who this was named after. This practice is named after this man, Elbridge Gerry. And he was famous because, here's actually a newspaper article I pulled up. So this is from 1813, where they were talking about this practice. This is a district that Elbridge Gerry created, I believe, when he was governor of Massachusetts. So this is a district that he drew, and this was a political cartoon that was released at the time. And they said that it looked like a salamander, basically, this mythical beast, I guess, combined with a salamander. But they drew this political picture to make fun of Elbridge Gerry and say this is how ridiculous he is and how he's trying to cheat the system by creating this gigantic, ridiculous congressional district that looks like a monster out of the thing. This happened in 1813. So gerrymandering is not a new issue. It's not a new problem. It's not something that has just started and, oh my God, Donald Trump is doing something that's never been done before and how terrible it is and the end of the republic is not, nothing, none of this is true. Any of the talk that you're hearing about how gerrymandering is terrible, gerrymandering is bad, it's never been done. Donald Trump's doing something that the Texas Republicans are trying to redraw districts and it's going to be the end of the republic and blah, blah, blah. It's all been done before, people. It is ridiculous. It's gone through waves. It has been more prevalent, less prevalent, and we are in a time where it's more prevalent, and there are a bunch of reasons for that. But both parties participate in it, and they have for 200 plus years. So we're not in a constitutional crisis. Nothing bad is happening. It's okay. I promise you, it's okay. And I'm going to very carefully show you some data that you can take back to your friends who are obviously shaking in their boots about the end of America, and you can tell them, no, calm down. Look, Tyler told me that it's all going to be okay, and here's why. Let me get into it for you. So basically, why are we talking about gerrymandering today? Why is it in the news today? Because as I said, the practice has been going on since the early 1800s, late 1700s. Why are we talking about it as though today Donald Trump is doing something that's never been done before in the history of the republic? Well, there are a couple reasons. A big reason, I won't say mainly, but a big reason is because the Supreme Court decided to take up some gerrymandering cases in the last 5 years that were relatively important to the practice itself. And there were two cases that happened in 2019. So there was a case, Rocho versus Common Course, which basically said that though the Supreme Court held, and this is a quote, the Supreme Court held that the practice of gerrymandering is, quote, inconsistent with democratic principles, end quote. But they ultimately said that gerrymandering is more of a political question than a legal question and said that it needed to be solved politically, not legally. So the Supreme Court basically struck down any laws that would restrict partisan gerrymandering and said that this is a political question, not a legal one. You can't just make laws that are going to restrict gerrymandering. It's actually part of the process, blah, blah, blah. The Supreme Court struck it down. Now, there was another case previous to this called Lulac versus Perry, which basically legalized the practice of mid-decade redistricting for partisan purposes. So both of these practices that are going on right now today, you think about it, we are mid-decade, 2025. It was legalized. The Supreme Court already ruled on it. As I just said, Lulac versus Perry legalized this practice before. And the practice of partisan gerrymandering has also been legalized by the Supreme Court. Nothing is unconstitutional about what's happening. So both of these questions have been answered by the Supreme Court within the last 5 years. So why now? Why is it in the news now? Well, Trump has been encouraging states to redistrict prior to the upcoming midterms to keep the House and the Senate and to keep Republican control. It's very explicit. This is very overt. He's not trying to hide the ball here. That's what he wants. He wants them to redistrict, to find Republican votes, to allow Republicans to hand to hang on to control of the House and the Senate during the midterm. Historically, the president loses in the midterm. That's just kind of the way it is for whatever reason. People elect a president, then 2 years later they get mad and they elect the other party. That's kind of what it happens. It happens basically every time. There have been exceptions to this, obviously, but I'm pretty sure the rule is the president loses the House and the Senate. He loses Congress. Not necessarily both, but he doesn't keep full control. So even someone like Obama comes in, they win everything. The Democrats win everything. Obama carries the card forward. They win the House. They win the Senate. They win the presidency. Democrats are ascendant. They'll never lose an election ever again. 2 years later, they lost it all. Not the presidency, but they lost both houses of Congress. So it kind of happens to everybody. Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. He wants to be able to enact his legislation, the things that he wants to do for his administration. So he wants them to redistrict. Okay, fine. Democrats are acting like this has never been done. It's not new, and the practice has actually been done previously. Now, what you'll see on the news, what you'll hear from Democrats all across the land is that Donald Trump is trying to disenfranchise Democrat voters. He's trying to make it so that Democrats don't have their say. He's trying to strip Democrat representation away in a way that's never been done before. In fact, what you'll see here is a video of not this one, excuse me. Yeah, right here. Okay. In fact, why don't we watch the governor of Illinois explain to us how bad this is. He explained it earlier this year. Why don't we let him just say it? Take it away. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois.
Because what Greg Abbott is doing and what Donald Trump is attempting to do is to cheat. Mid-decade here, this is they're attempting to change the map. They know that they're going to lose in 2026, the Congress, and so they're trying to steal seats. And so that is what these Texas Democrats are trying to stand up against. And then don't forget, the map that they put together it violates the Voting Rights Act and it violates the Constitution. And so thank God for these Texas House Democrats.
Yeah, see, what he's talking about here is earlier this year, the Texas Democrats fled to avoid having a quorum in Texas's Congress. And then they couldn't vote on these new districts, and they were saving democracy. And J.B. Pritzker says here, it's unconstitutional. It's anti-American. Basically, Donald Trump is the worst thing that ever happened. They're doing this. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. How dare they do a mid-decade redistricting job in Texas to get more Republican votes? Wait a minute. Hold on. What is this headache I have? Oh, wait, is it my hypocrisy radar from J.B. Pritzker? What happened in Illinois about, 4 years ago when Illinois redrew their congressional maps? What happened in Illinois? Why don't we just take a little look here? See, there's a report card here, redistricting report card from the Gerrymander project at Princeton University that rates, this is not a partisan website. This is a one for that lays it on both sides. Now, what happened in Illinois when they just recently redrew their congressional maps? Let's take a look here. You can look with me. So here's the report card, the redistricting report card. Now, where's Illinois? See, I live in Missouri. Missouri's green, which means that they have an A. The congressional, Senate, and House in Missouri means that we have relatively fair elections here in Missouri. Where's Illinois? I think they're my neighbor, but that doesn't make sense. Hold on here. They appear red. Why do they appear red? Let's do some deep digging. Oh, here's Illinois. There it is, the glorious state itself. Now, why are they red? Why is it that they're so bad? They get an F in their overall grade. Significant Democrat advantages. Advantages incumbents. Well, that doesn't seem competitive. Very uncompetitive relative to other maps that could have been drawn. Well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, Illinois is obvious. J.B. Pritzker is upset about Texas. Well, why would he be upset? Partisan fairness, an F. They're in the fair range where if it was competitive, the number of districts that lean Democrat would be 12, and right now it's 14. Oh, well, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound that bad, though. Why is it competitiveness? They also have a 0% rating. Well, that doesn't make any sense. How about geographic features? Compactness. What does this mean? This means Do the districts make geographical sense? They have an F. County splits. So why would you split counties? Obviously, counties should vote together, right? That doesn't make any sense. You don't split counties apart when you're trying to take the entire picture. The reason why you draw congressional districts the way you are is you're supposed to group people who are like-minded or at least in the same geographic area. Why are all of the counties in Illinois split in half? They have an F in county splits. Oh, my goodness. So Illinois has an F in their legislation. And why is this? Let's take a look. So when we talk about congressional districts, here we go. Take a look at Illinois. Let me tell you something. If you know anything about Illinois, and I'm pretty familiar with this little stretch of Illinois right here, look at this district. Look at District 13. Okay? District 13 in Illinois, for those of you just listening, is kind of shaped like a sickle, the top half of a sickle. It stretches from from East St. Louis. It goes north, kind of up 55, I guess, to Springfield, and then it jogs to the right all the way to Urbana. So how does this district make any sense? Tell me what East St. Louis and Urbana have in common. First of all, that's like a 2.5-hour drive. Okay? I've driven that many times. That is a long stretch of land. Nobody from East St. Louis has anything in common with Urbana. That would mean they should share a congressional district. How about this one up top? Rockford, Illinois, right at the very north end of Illinois. And then you have, it stretches left. We're going west to Davenport. Then we're going south and then jog back east to Bloomington. We have this little blue kind of half of a C shape here in Illinois. Why do we do this? What do they have in common? Nothing. The reason why Democrats do this is because they're cutting up, they're basically taking strong Democratic bases and making sure that districts have enough votes to get Democrats elected in those districts. Now, this is the practice that Republicans do as well. Don't get me wrong. You see these big red swatches, it doesn't mean anything because most of the congressional districts are right here in Chicago, which is why you wind up with a ridiculous, I actually have the number here. Let me find it. So, oh my gosh, you heard J.B. Pritzker, though. Those evil, evil Texas Republicans are doing the exact same thing that they do in Illinois. By the way, let's go back to that map just for one brief second here. By the way, just so you don't think I'm only picking on Illinois, you can see this is not a one-party problem. Texas has an F. Here we go. Texas has an F, a D, and a C. They're Republican. Florida, same thing. Florida has an F, an F, and an F. They're Republican. Georgia has an F, and a B, actually, for whatever reason, a B in the House, but they're Republican. And then you have Nevada. Nevada has an F. They're Democrat. You have Oregon. Oregon has a D and an A, actually, which is interesting, but they're Democratic leaning. Then you have Michigan, Republican. You have North Dakota, Democrat. This is not a one-party problem. Okay, this is a weird one I thought was interesting. So Louisiana has no partisan advantage, but it has an F based on, it says racial, which I think is interesting because I'm pretty sure Louisiana actually elects a lot of Democrats, but I am interested as to why. I didn't really break that one down. But anyway, you could see, not a one-party problem. California is interesting. California has a B and an A. It's yellow, but I think that one's actually kind of interesting. I actually didn't click on this one earlier. Here we go. This is why. Very uncompetitive relative to maps that could have been drawn. Okay, that's actually not too bad, but competitiveness. Yeah, look at that. Their competitiveness is down in the F. Their compactness is bad. Their county splits are bad. So, I mean, California is right on the bubble of leaning heavily Democrat. So anyway, my point is, in case it wasn't clear, this is not a one-party problem. Illinois has a bad problem. When they redrew their map in 2021, they reduced the amount of Republican representation in that state to just 3 out of the 17 allotted seats. This is the fewest number of Republican seats in that state since the Civil War. Okay, it's not representative of the amount of Republicans in the states. They just mess with the map so that Republicans don't have representation. The Brennan Center for Justice estimated that a fair map would have doubled the GOP representation. There would be at least 6 representatives who are Republican from that state. Illinois has 3. I don't care what Texas and North Carolina are doing because other states do it. The same thing could be said for Oregon, and the same thing could be said for Nevada. Like, all of these other states are doing it. I don't care that Texas and North Carolina are doing it. California does it, by the way. When you look at California, I believe something like, excuse me, my number's off here. I could be completely wrong. I think something like 40 to 45% of the state vote Republican. Almost half of California really is Republican. Is that how much representation they have in Congress from California? No. No, it is not. And so don't tell me that other states don't have this issue as well. Actually, you know what here? Real time, let me, I'm going to reach over my mic to do this because I got to do a little typing. California. Let me look something up here. Let's do this because I am curious. So 40% of California voted for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris won 9 million votes, 9.2, and Donald Trump won 6. So he's just shy of 40% of the vote. So 6 million people voted for the presidential election. Wow, that's crazy, actually. And then I'm curious. Let's see, California, Congress. California has 52 congressional districts, 52 blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm sure I could find this if I was a little quicker. Well, it doesn't really matter. So my point is that 40% of California is Republican, or 40% at least vote Republican. And of the 52, get you, buddy, be out your mind. Look at this cat. Get down here. Yeah, okay. So my point is both parties do this. Both parties are a problem. California has a problem. Illinois has a problem. I don't care about Texas. I don't care about North Carolina. I should have found this California one if I was going to bring it up, but I am interested actually to see how much that is. The Republicans, another reason why, though, I'm not concerned about this is not just because California does it. It's not just because Illinois does it. It's because the reason why gerrymandering exists, when you think about it, when we do every 10 years in the country, we do the census, okay? I'm sure at some point you filled it out in your life, or you should have. Fill out the census. What's wrong with you? Every 10 years we do that. The census is how we apportion representation in Congress. So it's why congressional districts get created every 10 years, basically, or they get revamped every 10 years, because each state has a new amount of representatives. Some of them change, most of them stay the same. In the 2020 census, we had some major flaws in our data collection that led to a misrepresentation in Congress that skews heavily in the Democrats' favor. And what am I basing this off of? Before I get called, Politico has said that this is a liar, pants on fire offense, and that everyone's lying because they don't have good data on it. This is ridiculous. I'll explain why. 8 states were absolutely overcounted in the last census. Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Utah. And 6 states were undercounted. Arkansas, Florida, Illinois, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. What you'll notice there is that all the states that were overcounted, meaning that they had more people than they actually had, they were given more representation than they actually deserved, are blue, except Utah. And all the states that were undercounted states were red, except Illinois. So when you adjust, and the Census Bureau has admitted that they use this bad data to do the apportionment for Congress. When you adjust for the actual populations of states, what you find is almost a 20-seat swing for Republicans. 20 seats that are now allotted to Democrats that should have gone to Republicans. The Republicans have like a 3-seat majority in the House of Representatives. They should have a 23-seat majority, is what this means. And I do take this seriously because this is a serious deal. So when you talk about gerrymandering, well, I think rigging the census was worse than any gerrymander that you could do in any particular state. You're allowed to do whatever you want in your state. I'm not for gerrymandering, by the way. This is not an endorsement of the practice. But I don't think that just because the Republicans do it, it makes it bad. When I can point to Democrat states that are doing the exact same thing and you're not upset about it. J.B. Pritzker is going to get on there and pretend that his state isn't partisan. It's silly. It's nonsense. I'm not going to sit there and listen to J.B. Pritzker talk about how Texas is undermining democracy when his state should have double the Republican representation that it has in Congress. So it's silly. 20 Republican seats were stolen by the census. So all this is doing really is allotting for the fact that Republicans actually deserve more seats than they have right now today. Ideally, in an ideal world, which we don't live in, this isn't utopia. We have to be real. So when you're real, the Republicans should play by the rules that the Democrats play by. What I would really like is for gerrymandering to become a thing of the past. I really do. I think it's bad. I do, in general. My idea, and I don't know how to fix it exactly, but my idea is that when you draw congressional districts, you should try and do a couple things. You should try and make each district representative of an equal amount of people, or at least a close amount of people. So every district should have the same amount of constituents. That seems like an obvious one to me. And your district should operate on clean lines and as few of them as possible. So what does this mean? This means that when we're looking at this map, when we find these examples of Illinois, here, we'll show it again. When we use this example of Illinois, none of this nonsense, okay? None of this zigzaggy, switchy, whatever nonsense, okay? My idea for Illinois would be something a little cleaner. It would be something a little more rectangular, something a little straighter. You know, maybe you have a line that kind of goes. Maybe it does this. Maybe it does steps. Nice and even, nice and easy. But then this guy right here, he'd be like another box. He'd be like doot doot, and then this guy would be a little box doot doot. And you have to figure out a way to do it with as few of these zigzaggy nonsense as possible. There's no way that these guys have this in common. This should be a square or a rectangle. It shouldn't be shaped like a quarter moon, okay? It's not. This is ridiculous, and obviously anyone who looks at this understands that East St. Louis and Urbana should not be in the same district. That's nonsense. And so, again, it's not an easy solution because cities and states, they don't always run in little squares. But my idea is to make them as rectangular as possible, as square as possible, and as even in the amount of people inside them as possible. And I think that'd be better. I'm not for pro-gerrymandering. I'm just saying all of this overblown news fear-mongering is exactly what I just said. It's overblown. You do not need to worry about this. This is not the end of the republic. Texas is going to do what Texas is going to do. Illinois is going to do what Illinois is going to do. And it's all going to be fine. I promise. As I said in the very beginning, you can tell your friends, oh, don't worry. Tyler said it's all going to be all right. And I'll put my stamp of approval on that. It's all going to be all right. And I don't know. This whole thing just drives me nuts sometimes because you watch these people who know they're obviously lying. J.B. Pritzker is not a dummy. He doesn't get to be elected governor of Illinois by being a dummy, okay? He gets elected there because he's a billionaire and his parents can fund his campaign. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. That's part of it. But you also can't be a total moron and get to be the governor of a state. I just refuse to believe that you have to have some redeeming. It's like people who said George Bush was dumb. It's like, no, he's not. He obviously is not. The guy did a lot of things in his life. He became president of the United States. I don't care how hard you prop somebody up. You can't get them to that point if they're just that big of a dummy. So J.B. Pritzker's not dumb. When he comes out there, he's a liar. He's just lying to you. He knows that what he's saying is a lie, but he thinks that it's going to gin up votes. He thinks it's going to gin up outrage. And by ginning up outrage, they are going to win elections. And it just, I don't like that. I don't think you should run by trying to scare everyone into voting for you. It's not really my style. I think you run on good ideas and not trying to just make your opponents seem like they're dangerous. I don't know. That's just me. That's just my opinion. Who knows? we'll see how it shakes out. Like I said, everyone just relax a little bit. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, let's get on to this second topic. Topic 2, Zoran gets taken down. I don't have much to say about this guy. I have said it all. I think he is the worst. I really hope he isn't the future mayor of New York. That's really all I want to say about him. Zoran Mamdani is a bad, bad guy. I wanted to talk about him, though, because not everything, but most of the things that I would want to say to this guy, I just got an assist. It's like a great pass to me from Andrew Cuomo. I want to play this little video, and it's going to make your day. If you know anything about Zoran Mamdani, it's the best.
Friend doesn't really...
Whoa. Calm down there. All right, check this out. We'll talk about it. This is great. This is from their debate. It just happened. And just listen to Andrew Cuomo take this guy down.
Yeah, go ahead. I understand my friend doesn't really understand government. The governor doesn't build housing in New York City.
Not if it's you.
No, legally, there are jurisdictions. The governor doesn't pick up trash. He doesn't run the fire department. That's what the mayor does. The mayor builds housing. The state allocates funding for localities. And I allocated more funding for housing than any governor in the history of the state of New York. All right? I did things. You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government. You don't know how to handle an emergency. And you've literally never proposed a bill on anything that you're not talking about in your campaign. You had the worst attendance record in the assembly. And you gave yourselves the highest raise in the United States of America. You went from $110,000 to $140,000, and then you never showed up for work, and you missed 80% of the votes. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Ooh. Oh, baby. I saw somebody saying, actually, we'll scroll down in the comments, what a blistering takedown. You've never had a job. You've never contributed anything to society. You are a trust fund baby, a failed rapper, and a guy who can't bench press 135 pounds. You are a professional, useless person, and you live off of your parents' success. And when you were in government for the brief period that you got elected to government, that you fooled people into thinking you were competent, you missed 80% of all your votes, you didn't show up to work, and you gave yourself a gigantic pay raise. You are not qualified to be the mayor of New York. And shame on you. Andrew Cuomo, and I added a couple things in there in case you couldn't tell. What a beautiful takedown. I don't know how people are going to be fooled by this guy. I don't know how anyone can vote for him and think he's a serious candidate, but he could actually win. Now, it seems like, I can't remember, I don't really care about this race outside of Andrew Cuomo just doing what he did. There's a Republican running for this who needs to drop out. I can't remember his name, but you can't let Mamdani win. If you have any love for New York, again, I don't really care about New York, but I don't want that city to fail. But if they elect Zoran Mamdani, you get what you vote for. I don't know what to tell you. I'd be remiss if they did, because here we go. I want to show you a couple things in the comments here. So, blah, 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 blah. This is the picture. This was going around. I don't know if you remember this or you saw this picture. This is why it would trouble me if New York votes for this man. Every year, I do a stair climb, raising money for Backstoppers, the Fallen Firefighter Foundation. On 9/11, we do a memorial stair climb. I'm a firefighter, and it is important to me that we remember this day for a lot of reasons, partly because it's my profession, and partly because I am an American patriot, and I remember that there are people out there who wish to see Americans die. Zoran Mamdani is the kind of guy who will take pictures and smile with men who wish death upon America. That's who he is. He knows who these people are. Sometimes you show people, you take a picture with someone, and they'll be like later, did you know that you took a picture with a white supremacist? And you're like, I take pictures with lots of people. Okay, not every person who takes a picture is my friend. This is not an event. This is not in a photo line. This guy didn't come up to him on the street. This is a meeting that they had. And Zoran Mamdani is taking photos with an unindicted co-conspirator of the World Trade Center bombing, the first one. And it's despicable to me because we are at a generation. Look at this picture. Look at how happy and smiley they are. Aren't they all great? They're great. And again, this guy, as J.D. Vance says in this quote here, I have been reliably informed that Democrats are opposed to any kind of political violence, so I look forward to them condemning Zohran Mamdani for campaigning with an unindicted co-conspirator in a terrorist plot that killed 6 New Yorkers. Beautifully put, J.D. Vance for president after Donald Trump. Anyway, this is a generational crisis that we are in. That is, it's going to outlast my lifetime. It's going to outlast your lifetime. But we are at a conflict point in the world that is difficult to understand from our small view, our microscopic view of the problem from our lives. We have been in a conflict, Western culture and Islam, for about 1,400 years. And this is not to say that there are going to be people immediately who clock this as Islamophobic or anti-Muslim. It's not that at all. What I'm saying is we have a set of values in America, and there are people in this world right now today who think that those set of values deserved to be burned to the ground, that this country itself deserved to be burned to the ground. And we think it's just a small number of people, and it's not. It's not. The things that you hold, the liberalism that you hold in your mind, it's not a small number of people in the world that disagree with them. It is a gigantic swath of all humanity that disagrees with them. And you don't think that because you look around the country and you see nothing but people who believe in free speech and freedom of religion and apostasy and freedom of the people of different persuasions to practice their beliefs separately. Homosexuals should be able to live freely, even if you don't agree with their lifestyle. They shouldn't be shot and killed in the streets. This is things that you take for granted in your life because you grew up in this Western culture. The other people in the world don't believe this. They don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe in freedom of religion. They don't believe that apostates should be allowed to live. They don't believe that gay people should be allowed to live. They don't have questions of gay marriage in Gaza. They have questions of how do we find and kill the gay people? That's a different kind of question. You understand this? And Zohran Mamdani, I think, is the guy, if 24 years after the Twin Towers fall, they elect a Muslim mayor of New York who embraces the kind of people who want to kill Americans, I don't know what to tell you. If New York can forget that, the whole country is going to forget that, and we're going to wind up being the next Britain, which I do not want to turn into. So I don't know. This is a bad look for New York, and let's hope that they send a message and just this guy gets like 4 votes of the 8 million people in New York, and that's that. But we never know. You never know where you're going to wind up because you never know until Election Day. I don't think anyone thought Donald Trump was going to win. Not really. Some people thought maybe, but not really. I don't think most people thought he had a chance. And then he won, and he became the president of the United States. You never know how it's going to shake out until election night. So hopefully New York can figure this one out. And Andrew Cuomo just made it a lot easier, I think, because he said all the things, most of the things. I added the part about the bench pressing and being a professional, useless person. But he said most of the things that I think a lot of voters are thinking. And it's good that someone calls this guy on him. You never had a job. You're 33 years old, dude. I've been working a full-time job since I was 21. Now, before that, I also went to school. And I worked through high school. I worked when I went to college. And then I got a full-time job after I graduated when I was 21. And I immediately got a full-time job. And I have worked a full-time job ever since, with a 3-month exception when I went to the fire academy, where I went to class 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So this guy's 33 years old. He's never had a real job in his life. I think that's embarrassing as a man. Like, I get that you get to grow up rich and be spoiled and do nothing. And that's great. I don't begrudge people this. But I think about if I was rich, like right now, if somebody just dropped a bundle of money on me, what would I do with my time? What would I do with my life? I would do what I'm doing right now. I would do things that I believe in and things that I want to do. I'd probably do more jujitsu. I'd probably write more because I'd have more free time. So I'd probably dedicate another hour a day to write. I would want to did the same thing I'm doing, try to get my books published. The same things that I'm doing, the same things that I work on every day because I like to work on things. What would Zoran Mondani do? I don't know. What did he do with all the money he had? He tried to launch a failed rap career. I guess that's cool. I mean, if that's the thing you want to do, what else has he done? What else has he ever done for other people? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know what I do for other people. I know where my efforts lie. I know what the things that I do to help my community. I know the things that I do for charity. What does he do? I don't know. I don't know the answers. And I don't know with whose money he's been doing it, but he certainly didn't contribute anything that he ever earned to help people. So anyway, I don't know. Let's hope New York figures it out. I don't care if they do. They get what they deserve. If you get what you vote for. And that's all I can say about that. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. I know it was just a lot of talking, a little bit of history, and I know I had to look some things up. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, guys, questions, comments, concerns down below. I really do. I look for suggestions. I know some people know this. Some people shoot me articles and ask me to talk about them, and I normally do if they have to be a little interesting, but I'm not going to talk about anything. But if they're a little interesting, I like to talk about things that people suggest. That article about the young Republicans, originally when I first saw that, no one was talking about it that I saw. I just read the article and thought it was interesting. And then I saw some people online talking about it. But that came from someone someone shot that to me before anything. So I read it before I saw, actually I think a bunch of people wound up talking about it later in the week, but I read it when it came out and I said, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I'll talk about this. And then you saw Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and all those guys did episodes where they mentioned it. And I said, oh, this is actually really interesting because I was going to talk about this and now I see other people are talking about it. And that just came from a listener. So anyway, always suggestions, questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. Shoot me a private message, whatever the case may be, and I will talk about them on the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I know this was a little bit of a rambly one, and we talked about a lot of data, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, I'm going to catch you next Friday. As always, take care. I'll see you guys in a week.